Greetings everybody around the world. It's time once again for Ancient Aliens Radio. This is the dedicated radio show for the cast of Ancient Aliens. Here we interview authors and researchers as an ongoing investigation into the ancient alien theory. Don't forget to like us on Facebook or subscribe to the YouTube channel Ancient Aliens Radio. Today I'm going to be talking to Reverend Michael Carter, and we're going to be talking about alien scriptures and the Bible with an extraterrestrial context. So let me tell you a bit about Michael J. Carter before I bring him on. Reverend Michael J. Carter is originally from Baltimore, Maryland, and he moved to New York City in 1980. And there he has lived for 25 years, working as a professional actor before he moved to Asheville with his family. Michael is an ordained interfaith minister and received his BA degree in letters from the College of New Rochelle, where he graduated cum laude. He received his Master's in Divinity degree from the Union Theological Seminary in New York City, class of 2000. He has served as a staff chaplain, board certified at Lenox Hills Hospital, Beth Israel Hospital, Beth Israel Cancer Center, Methodist Hospital, and New York Hospital Queens while residing in New York City. While serving various Unitarian Universalist congregations in New York, Michael was trained as an anti-racism trainer and has been recognized by President Clinton for his efforts. Michael was also a weekly columnist for the Asheville Citizen Times. Hospitals. He has served as a diversity consultant for the Grove Park Inn, Asheville City School Foundation, and the Asheville Buncombe Institute for Parity Achievement. He and his wife Judy Long, a Unitarian Universalist minister, reside in Ardennes, New York City, with their 4-year-old daughter Kevin, who has 2 cats, Isis and Luna, and their 2 labs, Duchess and Dante. Of course, you can contact Michael J. Carter on his website, which is michaeljscarter.com, and you can check out his full biography there. I don't go that much detailed on biographies, but I think it's pertinent to today's discussion. And we're going to be discussing Michael's book, which is Alien Scriptures, Extraterrestrials in the Holy Bible. So without further ado, let's bring on Michael. Welcome, Michael.
Oh, my pleasure, James. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, wow, what a bio there, man. You're a very active individual, Michael.
Well, what's the old saying? The Danish philosopher Søren Kierkegaard said that life is lived forward, but it's only understood backwards. And as you were reading that, I was going back to my life about all these, these various paths that have brought me here today. So I think Kierkegaard was onto something.
Oh, for sure. Michael, you're also, I didn't read out there, but you're also a certified Reiki teacher as well.
Yes. I teach Reiki. I've been doing it since 1991. It feels like something I've done before, but I can tell you that the energy that comes through my hands is really more intense since my visitations.
Wow, yeah, and it's something I find fascinating. I've had Reiki done on me before, and I went out with a lady who did Reiki, and I don't understand it at all, but I just know that it was quite healing for me at the time. Well,
basically, Reiki, and I'm sure you know this, Rei means universal, Ki means energy. The Chinese call it Qi. Japanese call it Ki. We call it energy, and some people call it Holy Spirit. Call it what you will, but basically, we live in it. We're surrounded by it. It's universal energy. What a Reiki master does is adjust your chakras, your energy system, the power points in your body, so that this energy just channels through you and flows through you. Now, of course, there are healers who don't do anything, who maybe don't know nothing about Reiki. They just have this warmth coming through their hands. But however you describe it, it's the life force energy that is coming through us to the individual. And so it realigns the body's chakra system, emotional, physical, spiritual bodies, and it helps bring about a feeling of wholeness. And if your body feels whole, if you're whole, then healing can take place.
Mm. Yeah, wow, powerful stuff.
That's a lot of words, but yeah, that's basically what it is.
Yeah, no, it's something I've had. I've actually had a few. I've had also shiatsu, like that Japanese size.
I love that stuff, man.
Yeah, well, I had a problem, and I'm open to these alternative concepts, alternative ideas, alternative healing, alternative knowledge. Partly why I do the show, Michael, but and what we're going to talk about today. But I mean, yeah, I just find it fascinating, and I think it's just such an enigmatic approach to life, Michael. I just thought that was worth a mention, and it's like I say, I'd like to do a show on Reiki at some time, like, and just because I just want to do a few shows on alternative healing and alternative knowledge, and I think the last time we spoke, Michael, I was telling you about my dad was a hypnotist, and he had healed people with asthma. Yeah, I don't know if I told you that last time we spoke. But
No, I don't remember you bringing that up. It's fascinating.
yeah, actually, my dad's not a very religious person, Michael. He doesn't ditch it. He doesn't diss it at all. But he's just not a. But the healing that he did with for asthma was that he would make them wear a cross, and when they when they felt like an asthma attack, they would press the cross that was hanging around their neck to their skin, and the act of doing that would then dissipate the asthma attack. And he had a very successful. People with really bad asthma were coming to my dad, like from all over UK and Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland, and he had a very high success rate. So this is the alternative healing father figure that I've had, like. So. And he's always instilled in me some alternative knowledge on unexplained and mysteries as well. So
yeah, and now people, which I kind of agree with. Most people say, well, rather than alternative, it's complementary, because these techniques can go hand in hand with Western modalities of medicine as well. So they actually can complement one another. Just very quickly, I knew a guy who went to the same seminary I did. He was an interfaith minister and very, very talented man, a family man. He was in his early 60s, and he died because he died from pneumonia. And, garlic is good for the lung. Garlic is good for many things, but one of the healing properties is with the lung. But what happened is he caught pneumonia, and he would not go to Western medicine because he felt that somehow that meant he wasn't spiritual enough. That meant that somehow he didn't have the faith or whatever the word is. And so he died because his lungs filled up with fluid. And by the time he decided that he would take the antibiotics, it was too late. So tragic story. Yeah, listen, Western medicine has saved my life on occasion. I do Reiki. I take garlic. I mean, I use complementary stuff. But if I need to take a pill that's going to make me better, I will do it.
Yeah, why not do it all? Why not do East and West? Who's to say? It's like if there's something there that's going to help people or mend people, or just try anything. Just like get out there and do it and get knowledgeable in it. I don't think stuff is taboo anymore, Michael. I think stuff used to be taboo 20 years ago. Now people are very open-minded these days.
Yeah, human evolution is slow, but it does happen.
Nicely put, Michael. Nicely put. Michael, you're here today to talk about UFOs in the Bible and all sorts of weird and wonderful stuff. But what I didn't read out in the bio is that you've been on the Sci-Fi Channel and you've been on the History Channel's Ancient Aliens, which people probably be more familiar with you with. How did that come about, I suppose, or how did you get into the subject? Is it always been there from the time you were a minister studying theology, or? Oh,
no, God, James, no. Listen, much to my chagrin, I still recall a time, I grew up in Baltimore before I moved to New York, and I was in New York for almost 30 years, but I remember, someone asking me, do you believe in life on other planets? I was very young. And I said no, and I remember they said, why not? And I said, well, it's not in the Bible. I mean, being raised here in the West and coming from the family that I did, the Bible was key, and people tried to model their lives after that, and there are good things, some great things in the Bible. But no, I didn't get on into that until I started getting into metaphysics, whether it was Reiki or what we call New Thought, which is much deeper than positive thinking, but, religious science of mind. When I started getting into metaphysics and realizing that, well, Plato said this long ago, that there's an invisible world and that the physical world is the model for that invisible world, and that thoughts are things. And I started reading, which I read voraciously, and I started hearing about a couple other ministers, Dr. Barry Downing, who's a colleague and friend of mine, wrote a book back in 1968 called The Bible and Flying Saucers. Morris K. Jessup, who died under mysterious circumstances, wrote a book back in the 50s about this subject. And R.L. Dion, Does God Drive a Flying Saucer? And I was intrigued, but not until I had my own visitations did I really went great guns at this. And I started reading, and picking up chapters in the Bible. There's a chapter in Isaiah, Isaiah 40, and verse 22, talking about God, in parentheses. It is he who sits above the circle of the earth, and its inhabitants are like grasshoppers, who stretches out the heavens like a curtain. Now, I don't know about you, but I was told that we thought the world was flat until Columbus. And here we have a writer, some people say it's Isaiah. It may not have been, but we have the prophet Isaiah saying, 5,000 years ago, that he who sits above the earth, the circle of the earth. How did Isaiah know the earth was a circle? Where's he getting his information? And I had to decide whether I was taking away people's faith, which is not what I was doing, but I wanted us to look at the Bible in a different way. There's a verse in which I knew Yahweh could not have been God. There's a verse in the book of Ezekiel, chapter 4, 13, chapter 4, verse 13, and Ezekiel is eating excrement, and he's being told to do this by the Lord. It says, "Eat it as a barley cake. You shall bake it on human excrement before their eyes. So said the Lord, shall the people of Israel eat their bread unclean among the nations to which I will banish them." And he goes on in verse 15, he answered me, "See, I allow you cow's dung instead of human excrement. Prepare your bread on that."
Hey, we got cut off, Michael. I'll just bring you back in.
Okay, now I guess I was talking about Ezekiel.
And yeah, I got it to the cow dung part.
Yes, that was it. That's when we got cut off. Maybe that was a sign. But anyway, I started saying, what kind of a God would have people do that? And then I just thought that perhaps if we looked at these stories, and they're in all cosmologies, whether it's Native American star people or the Vimanas in the Hindu religion, that they're all talking about beings who came from the skies, who drove these wonderful and fantastic and deadly machines. And I started saying, wait a minute, let's look at this. Because, see, the Bible can be used for many things, as all scriptures can be. I mean, we've used it in our country to justify slavery. We've used it also to free, to give people a sense of freedom from slavery. We've used it to persecute and to prosecute and oppress people of various sexual orientations. We've used it to keep women in their place, so to speak. So the Bible can be used for many things. It can be used for liberation. It can be used for oppression and slavery. And so it can be many things to many people.
Wow. So, Michael, let's bring this into people out there that are maybe familiar with UFOs on their own in historical context, because you go into UFOs in historical context, and of course Roswell, the big famous case. But I mean, what's your verdict on recent history, recent ufology? Do you look into that, Michael, or do you just concentrate on the Bible aspect?
Well, no, I don't think we have to do both. I mean, I love Richard Dolan's book, UFOs in the National Security State. Have read both those volumes. The Watchers by Raymond Fowler, Betty Andreasson and Betty and Barney Hill cases. To go back, I mean, we could go on and on. Whitley Strieber, the late Bud Hopkins' work, of course, Zachariah Sitchin. I'm saying that these beings have been coming here probably since the beginning of recorded time and before that, and so and still influence us. I mean, our government says that there's no such thing as extraterrestrial life, and to prove it, we have volumes upon volumes of classified documents. People have camcorder evidence of these extraterrestrials, and their craft. And so I try to tie them both together, and that I don't believe you can study one without really looking into the other. But if they have been coming since our ancestors' time, the dawn of history, and we have scriptures talking about it, Sumerian scriptures, of course, the Hebrews borrowed it for their book of Genesis, then they most likely are still coming here now. And I think it would be very, very foolish to think that we're the only ones in the universe. And, what was the movie Contact with Jodie Foster? What's the line she uses in the movie that I love? If we're the only ones in the universe, it seems like an awful waste of space.
Very well put. Very well put, Michael. I had Stanton Friedman on the show before, and
yes,
I had Kathleen Marden on the show as well. She's the niece of Betty and Barney Hill.
Yes, I know she is. Yes.
Yeah, and
I mean, you get quality people, you get experts in the field, you get open-minded people, and so you're doing a great service.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you. I'm very blessed, and the thing is, there's several UFO cases out there, but the ones for me is the Travis Walton case and the Betty and Barney Hill story. But what I liked about the Betty and Barney Hill story is, and not that I need 100% proof all the time, Michael, but there's very strong evidence in that case. I mean, she was fit to draw a star map, and the star map wasn't even known to exist until a school teacher took the Betty and Barney Hill case as fact and went, well, if it's true, we got to find it and it's got to be out there. And they found it as the Zeta Reticuli system. Which is actually in our
Which is where the people say the grays come from.
Yeah, exactly. And it's in our backyard. It's like a twin star system 39 light years away, which on the grand scale of the galaxy of 100,000 light years across, it's our backyard, Michael.
Yes.
Oh, so
yes,
that's some of
it's so fascinating. It's so fascinating. It's hard to, you'd have to almost really be living with your head in the sand to not look at these stories and these people and say, wait a minute, who would want to go through the ridicule? Look what Travis Walton went through. I remember the movie. I'm not just talking about what he went through on the craft, just what he went through when he came back. And I mean, my God, people ridiculed him. They talked about him. They ostracized him. Why would someone go through that?
Yeah. Why?
If nothing really happened to them.
Mm. Yeah.
Why would they subject themselves to that kind of ridicule? And I don't know. Yeah. But these are the pioneers.
These are pioneers, Michael. Exactly, the ones that come forward. And here's the thing: there's so many cases out there, Michael, but there's a handful of core that just stand up to scrutiny, or and there's a lot of disinformation. We're going to talk probably about governments too now in a second. But
yes.
I mean, there's a lot of disinformation out there too, so I can understand why people can be skeptical, but you can't just wash it all away, Michael. This is.
No, you can't. I mean, you can if you want to, but life will pass you by. But the other thing, I mean, talking about governments, at least here in the States, I mean, I've talked about my experiences, and other people have talked about theirs, but technically, we could be put away because, with the Patriot Act and national security and all this, basically we could be charged with colluding with a foreign power.
Yeah.
Saying that we've had experiences, that we've had contact, that at least quarantine. And so, right now it's good to be able to come out and say these things, but who knows what the backlash can be if people start feeling threatened in high places. Let's say there's a sighting that no one can really explain away. Of course, there already have been, but one where you just can't say this is a balloon, you just can't say this is swamp gas, and then it's when it really gets interesting. What do you do with people like me or people who come out and said, yes, I've seen these beings. I've been on their craft. They've given me certain pieces of information. That's when it can get a little dicey.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm going to come back to that little theme in a second because I want to talk about the Mormons and Joseph.
Yes.
Yeah, I want to get into that just because he believes that he was given knowledge and the books
by the angel from the angel. God, forget the angel's name. Moroni, yeah. Yes, yeah. Moroni. Well, isn't this how the religions are? The began, at least the religions of the book, Islam, Christianity, and Judaism.
Yeah, Islamic.
I mean, an angel comes, a messenger comes, and the next thing you know, you get these laws and these rules, and the next thing you do, they're perverted, and and then I believe if Joseph Smith came back, Muhammad came back, Jesus came back, Buddha came back, and I believe they would say, gang, this is not really what we had in mind.
I think you're right. And I think, oh my God, they would shake their head and go, this
is not really what we had in mind.
Yeah. And the etymology of angel is messenger, isn't it? It's the.
Well, yes. In Greek, it means messengers, and they didn't have wings. But when they had wings drawn on them by our ancestors, basically they were saying these beings flew.
Yeah.
But no, they didn't have wings. If they had wings, you could see them coming a mile away. You look in the book of Genesis where they talk about the story of Abraham. These were messengers. They didn't have wings.
Sure.
They ate with Sarah and Abraham. They ate the food that was baked and what have you. They looked probably very much human.
Mm-hmm.
Or they were familiar enough to Abraham and Sarah that they knew who they were.
Sure.
Yeah.
On the Roswell, what do you feel about Roswell? What do you think is the most important points to take away from Roswell? Because that's what I always try to do, Michael. I try and go look at the evidence and go, what's the most important evidence or outcome or conclusion?
I think the outcome is this, and it could all be otherwise. Something happened. Okay, we can all agree on that. But these, they're flying around our military installations. We just split the atom a few years before, and we had the audacity to drop nuclear weapons over civilian targets. Okay, I mean, we're talking about this now. We don't want Syria and all these folks to have nuclear weapons. I'm not a diplomat. I'm sure it's more to it than what I'm saying. But one must always keep in mind, America, you dropped atomic weapons on civilian cities. So, okay, end of story. Now, in his book, UFO and Nukes, Robert Hastings talked about the UFO sightings around our military installations. The lesson of Roswell is that it's like Dr. King said, we will have to learn to live together as brothers and sisters, or we will perish together as fools. We will destroy ourselves. And we are a danger to other life in the galaxy, and which is probably why these beings, now, they're different races of extraterrestrial beings, so you can't lump them all into one group. Yeah. But for them to be flying around our military installations, they probably want to know these people have this technology, but do they have the spirituality to go with it? It appears not.
Yeah. I think you're referring to the Rendlesham Forest case, Michael. That was on Ancient Aliens, actually.
Yes, and that was also in the UK, was it not?
Yeah, I actually lived too far from near Rendlesham Forest. Although I would have known it as that case until Ancient Aliens. I actually wasn't even aware of it. But it's absolutely fascinating, the Rendlesham Forest. I mean, these guys were protecting a nuclear missile arsenal, and there was strange.
Yeah, I mean, we have enough nuclear weapons to destroy 30 or 40 Earths. And I think this is a concern to at least some of the races in our galaxy and maybe beyond, that this planet is really, really kind of backwoods. I mean, we fight too much. Yeah. We argue. I mean, this is the way we get technology, and we make money on it, and we use it to make weapons. Yeah. This is a concern.
They must look down and go, warfare, what are these guys? This is so old school. You go back to the movie The Day the Earth Stood Still, not the new one, the remake with Canal Reeves, but the original one with Michael Rene, and of course the Canal Reeves version, they updated it for ecological times and the times we're living in. But even then, I mean, the message from Michael Rene as the extraterrestrial was that we cannot tolerate this infantile behavior of you fighting. If you want to destroy yourselves, fine, but you're a menace
to the rest of the galaxy. So what are we going to do with you? You can't be allowed. You can't be allowed to just run amok. It's like giving a loaded 9mm to a 5-year-old. Nothing good will come of it.
Sure. Have you ever come across the Black Knight satellite, Michael?
No, not that I know of.
You got to check this out. I only came across it not too long ago myself, but there's a satellite in space. NASA has been up to it. It's called the Black Knight satellite. I did a little show on a little mini expose. It's been around for a long time. Do you reckon this satellite's been in existence as long as we've had satellites? Nobody even knows who made it. Nobody knows why it's there. It looks like a black spacecraft floating around in our orbit, and they say it's beaming signals to Earth as well.
Wow.
Yeah, there's NASA pictures of this thing, and they've been up looking at it and expecting it. I reckon if they could go up there to get that thing down, they would have it down if they could get it, because it's in orbit, you see. So they're probably waiting on it to fall or come out of orbit. But
yes,
there's strange signals coming off it as well.
I didn't know that. I'll have to Google it. The Black Knight satellite.
The Black Knight satellite. You got to check this out. I did a little show on it and a 20-minute news clip the other day. Not a lot of people know about it, but it's actually on the Armagh Planetarium website, which is in Northern Ireland. There, they have their own article on it. A mainstream planetarium has a big article on it. It's crazy, But I guess Roswell, Michael, for me, what's so astounding is that technology has caught up with the story now. And the general that was washing this all away as a weather balloon, he was holding articles and papers in his hands, and some of the words and text were visible to the camera, but they used super enhancement, computerized enhancement technology to discern what was actually in the documents in his hands. And there were key words in it like disk, crashed disk and all stuff like this, which really just threw the whole thing open for me. That was the most key piece of evidence.
Yes.
Because it just gave the context to the story. I mean, I think we were told lies, Michael.
Of course. And
the government cover-up runs deep, if you ask me. It runs deep.
Oh, you better believe it. But no lie lives forever, as the saying goes. And we're living in not only interesting times, as the Chinese proverb says, but I think we're living in some really, we may look back on these days and say, I was really fortunate to have been alive to see some of the things that we have seen and that we're going to see.
Sure. How did you come to write the book then, Michael? Did you just sit down one day and go, I'm privy to this knowledge, because you being such a man of the faith and being obviously qualified to God, I can't even consume what knowledge. I mean, I've looked into all aspects of biblical tales from history to this stuff, but I mean, this is something you're living, Michael. So did you come to the point where you knew so much knowledge you went, I got to put this in a book?
In some ways I did, but it was, what it was? It was the thesis. It was my master's thesis, as I talk about in the book, and I'm very grateful, eternally grateful, that this seminary, Union Theological Seminary, I'm proud to say one of the top seminaries in the country, a very progressive, forward-thinking group of professors there who stress more the social gospel of how to, justice here on planet Earth, feeding the hungry, those types of things. But I just didn't like the topics I had to choose from. I mean, I felt it was already done, whether we wrote about church history or New Testament studies or, that kind of thing. And I said, well, this is religious. This is certainly worth studying. And at least two of my professors in systematic theology asked me would I stay on and for a PhD program, but I didn't want to be 60 years old still paying off my school loans. However, I was just really received. The material was really received very, very warmly. And so I was given the permission this could be a topic. I felt that they would, they could have said, no, you won't graduate from here unless you find something else. but they said, fine, that's your topic. Make it scholarly, of course. You have to do that. This is an academic institution. And it became my thesis. And then I just added on to it. And I added on to it and added on to it. And then people started saying, well, you got a book there. And then my first publisher said that you have to tell your story. Tell about your visitations. And so I think that's what sets it apart, to be honest with you, James. Not only am I a man of color, because you don't see many people of color in the UFO community, at least I don't, it hasn't been my experience, whether they're talking about experiences or just attending conferences, what have you, but also that I, unlike my colleagues, not unless they're keeping it under wraps, have had my own contact experiences. So I come at it from a very different perspective in some ways.
Wow. So, Michael, do you feel then there's a different approach to you because you're a man of faith, as opposed to somebody else who is just like me, a Joe Soap on the street, who has a story to tell or has done investigations or research? Is it any different to you because of the context of what you're talking about and the context of your background?
I would have to say yeah. I would have to say yeah for the reasons you just named. But I also try to make it plain to people, James, that you know, I believe that the reason we're here is to learn to love. Pure and simple. And you don't have to have extraterrestrial visitations to make that happen. However, looking at the world's religions from this different cosmology that not only are our religions probably coming from otherworldly beings, but that means the way we interact with each other will have much to do with how we survive. I mean, my constitution mentally, intellectually, I'm not into propulsion systems and how they fly, whether they come from the future or dimensions or that we know not of. I find that fascinating, but my passion lies in, okay, how do I interact, negotiate, navigate as a person in a physical body on this planet with other people after having this experience?
Sure.
Because if you look at the religions of the world, they're basically, in any religion, there are guidelines on how to be in good relations with your neighbor, with the planet, with other life forms. Mm-hmm. And so I look at that and how does contact with these beings show us how to get along with each other or not? That's what I'm interested in. And because I see it in myself. I didn't care that much about the planet. You know, I was religious. I believed in something larger than myself. I didn't know it wasn't anthropomorphic in any way. But after I started having these visitations pretty regularly, I mean, and again, people get there without having this experience, but I started really seeing the interconnectedness of everything. That what I do to you, I'm doing to myself. And that what I do to this planet, I'm doing to myself. Now, it's hard to live that way every day. So I'm not trying to come off as being righteous. I mean, I have issues, and I try to work through them every day. But at least I start seeing that I'm not separated. There is a law of one. Neil Walsh talks about it in Conversations with God, that all these problems are because we are separate from one another. And my background in diversity, for me, diversity is not just race. It's geography, it's sexual orientation, it's social economic status, it's religion, but it's also if I am being visited by other beings, then those are my brothers and sisters as well.
Yeah. Because
the universe is teeming with diversity, with different life.
Yeah.
And so I don't see any cause for, if I want to talk about diversity, it's not just on planet Earth, it's everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Wow. That's pretty deep and passionate. And I know you're a very passionate guy. I not only know from talking to you for the first 5 minutes, Michael, you're a very passionate guy. And I love the message that you bring, and that these guys are our brothers. Like, these are guys aren't just, it's not us and them. It's not like those people up there and us down here, or, these strange looking beings and us humans, or these guys are brothers and sisters. Like, it doesn't matter.
Yes, they definitely are, and there's some that don't mean us any good, just like there are people that don't mean us any good, and there's some that do, and maybe never the twain will meet. But we get into this us and them, and what do they want? Well, who are they? You have many species. You have the reptilians, you have the praying mantis, you have some grays, you have the beings that came to me who look like grays, but they're not. They have the big heads, but they're like white and chalk colored. You have I hear reports about people in Europe, they see more of the Nordic, the Swedes, who are blonde, blue-eyed. I mean, so you have all these different races / species. So just like you have all these races on the earth, and you can't just say what one group wants because there's so many groups. Mm-hmm. But you can, and so that's what we have to keep in mind, because otherwise we're going to do to them what we do to us, which is shoot them down, try to shoot them down. We'll shoot first, we'll ask questions later. Yeah. It's this fear mentality that we have as human beings.
I think that's the approach of the government. I think that is their plan, just shoot them down and ask questions later. I think that's probably maybe what happened in Roswell, maybe. I'm not sure, though.
Yeah. Well, we know that something happened because the one that survived was kept under lock and key, and then eventually died from wounds, I hear, or what have you. But we're as citizens of the world, we're not told anything.
Yeah,
we're not told anything. What would happen? I'm sure if these folk can fly in different dimensions or different planets, they probably could help with our oil shortage. They could give us ways to use free energy, but we can't have free energy because there's too much money to be made.
Yeah, we
can't have cures for cancer and AIDS and these diseases because there's too much money to be made. So our basic way of being in the world as humans on planet Earth is diametrically opposed to what some of these beings want to talk about.
Mike, you brought up a very good point there, because I think, forget about for a minute the UFO question. I think the UFO excuses that people have pushed this idea away was that why would they come here and do this, and why would they do that, and why wouldn't they XXXX? But these excuses now don't work anymore, because there's such a reason. People understand there's a reason to keep this knowledge behind closed doors. That is the oil, the control.
Yes. The oil. There's weaponry. There's energy. Yeah. I'll give you a quick example. I won't name the hospital, but I worked at a hospital in New York City as a chaplain, and there was a custodian there. He was very evangelical in his Christianity, and he was a Latino man. And we had a tenuous truce. I was doing Reiki. He didn't really know what that was, and he probably thought it was from the devil or something, But he was a faith-filled man, and there was a terminally ill patient in this hospital that this guy prayed over, and this person's cancer was gone. Wow. And what they did was, to thank him, was they fired him. Now, I understand we don't want lawsuits, that kind of thing. But at least study this guy. At least talk to this guy. And I guarantee you, I call it space Reiki now because, whatever's coming out of my hands is really more powerful than it was when before my contact experiences. But if I went out here, or you and I went out here, and we started putting our hands on people and taking their diseases away, we would probably have more trouble with our governments than if we hadn't, because we're taking money out of people's pockets.
Yeah, that's another good point. Medicine is money, isn't it?
Medicine is, the American Medical Association is one of the strongest associations on the planet.
Yeah, for sure.
And, there's money to be made, and so there's fundraising for cancer research and what have you. Well, what happens if there's a cure for cancer, which there probably is already? But if you and I found it, or we started praying over people and putting our hands on them, and HIV would go away, or Alzheimer's, rather than being thanked, we will begin to have problems after a while because, again, there's too much money to be made. And it's painful to even have to think that way. But you and I both know it's true.
Yeah, and I think a lot more people are aware that, there's such a control mechanism to keep us at bay on this planet by the powers that be, whoever our group.
Well, to keep us slaves, to keep us dependent, to keep us fear-based. There's not enough love to go around. There's not enough hate to go around. There's not enough codependence to go around. There's not enough money and weapons to go around. We're constantly told that there's never enough in a universe that is teeming with abundance.
Michael, just going to take a quick break there. We'll be back in just a moment.
Okay.
And we are back with your host, James Swagger, on Capricorn Radio. Don't forget, guys, check out the YouTube channel on CapricornRadio.com. We are talking to Reverend Michael Carter, and we're talking about UFOs, ETs, and alien scriptures in the Bible. Michael, I suppose let's talk about ancient ETs, if you want to call it that, historical context of UFOs in the Bible, I suppose.
Okay.
But I guess maybe just talk about some examples, Michael, about probably what's the best examples in the Bible. Give us a.
There's several examples, and of course I would start with the Exodus story.
Yeah.
And in the Exodus story, we have Moses leading the Israelites. Well, they're not even Israelites; they're the Hebrew people out of Egypt, and they're led by a pillar of fire by day, a pillar of fire by night. A pillar of cloud by day, pillar of fire by night. And we know with a lot of modern day UFO sightings, they're either surrounded by clouds or there's a stream of moisture behind them that's very cloud-like. And at night, this particular craft, it glows. So they call it the pillar of fire. So it's at least a UFO because it's in the air and it's unidentified. And it leads them. So it follows them through the wilderness. They follow it. They camp. It hovers above them. They camp. It hovers above them. And then when they travel again in the daytime, they move. And so here we have what I call at least an unidentified flying object. We have Moses receiving the 10 Commandments on Mount Sinai. There's a lot of UFO sightings around mountain areas, even to this day. Moses goes up, he gets the 10 Commandments, he comes down, his face is shining, and the people are afraid of him. And so perhaps it's high radiation. Because afterwards, he wears a veil over his face, and the only time he takes the veil away from his face is when he talks to Yahweh. In the book of Zechariah, the first chapter in Zechariah, we see, in one version of the Bible, it says that the craft are patrolling the earth, but the others, for instance, the Tanakh, the Peshitta, which is the Aramaic translation of the Bible, says that they're going to and fro. But here we have, Zechariah is saying, he's asking what is going on, and they answered and said, the angel of the Lord said that we have patrolled the earth, and behold, all the earth sits still and is at rest. And he calls them chariots. We talk about the flying chariots in the book of Ezekiel. And so here we have these craft that fly. And I don't believe they're making this up. I believe that this is what's going on. Those are just some examples in the First Testament or Old Testament.
They witnessed stuff, Michael. They witnessed stuff like.
Yes, and they wrote them down.
Yeah.
And so we have Ezekiel on the chariot and the flying chariot. He gets taken up. He calls it by the Spirit of the Lord. The Spirit of the Lord takes him up. Takes him up by the locks of his hair. Who's ever listening, go back and read the book of Ezekiel. This is a perfect contactee abduction experience. And of course, the birth of Jesus. Now I'm skipping other stories in the interest of time. However, I go over all of these in depth in the book. Jesus, the birth of Jesus. And we have the wise men following a star. And we know that stars don't move across the face of the earth or across the skies. It would cause tsunamis and tidal waves that we wouldn't believe. But here we have the Star of Bethlehem, and it stops and hovers over a manger, and it shines a light down on the manger. This is a craft. We also have stories in the Quran where Moses is taken up by the Spirit of Allah, and he's transported to various places. And so I'm putting all this together. I'm also putting together the angel Gabriel has a wonderful job in the Bible and the Quran, because every time he visits someone, they wind up pregnant. And he visits Miriam, the mother of Jesus, whom we call Mary. He visits Samson's mother, Manoah. He visits John the Baptist's mother, wife. I'm sorry, their wives. And so the next thing you know, they're pregnant. And what's so great about this is that they're barren. These are older people, and they wind up being pregnant. And so is this artificial insemination? How are they becoming pregnant? And then they give birth to these men, people like Samson with superhuman powers, people like Jesus.
Let me go.
Because see, if your daddy is extraterrestrial or an angel and your mama isn't, that means you're not fully human.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You see, and so we need to look at these stories. And I could be wrong. I'm open to that, but I think it gives us something to think about. Samson comes and he's got all this strength until his hair is cut. There's Jesus.
The ancient ET question, Michael, explains a lot, though, doesn't it? It explains a hell of a lot of problems and anomalies that we have. It opens
up a lot of possibilities. It opens up a lot of possibilities. And we have Jesus saying in the book of John before Pilate, you are from below, I am from above. Mm. Your kingdom is of this world, my kingdom is not of this world. Now, either he was speaking very metaphorically or he was speaking literally.
Sure. You mentioned Ezekiel there. There's a thing called Ezekiel's wheel. Maybe tell us a little bit about that, because are we talking a UFO here? Ezekiel?
Well, there's a wonderful book called The Spaceships of Ezekiel. The guy's last name is Blumrich, Blumrich. He was a NASA scientist. And what he did, and you can Google this, the Spaceships of Ezekiel, what he did was he took now remember, this is a NASA scientist, and he takes the information from the book of Ezekiel about what Ezekiel said he saw, and it's on the cover of his book, and it's an aircraft. It's a flying saucer. Right. And Ezekiel is taken up into this, and he talks about what he sees. The Lord, he calls the Lord sitting on the throne, and he talks about what the throne looks like, and it seemed like it could have been a tile floor with colors going on and off. But I mean, this is definitely a craft, and not only because of this, but it drops him off places. I mean, it picks him up and it takes him places.
Sure.
It's like a taxi. And so, what do we do? Again, do we say, oh, come on, man, these guys are crazy? Or do we say that these brothers and sisters, our ancestors, are saying that we have had contact? And the technology, of course, is what blows them out of the water. Mm-hmm. And they would be gods. These extraterrestrials would be gods to primitive human beings.
Sure.
If we took an iPhone out and pulled it out in front of Ezekiel, he may say, man, that looks like something I've seen on the ship. Yeah. But this technology, it's godlike.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
It's godlike. And I think that the Bible is full of these types of stories. Again, I go back to Isaiah. How did Isaiah know that the earth was round? How did he know that it was a sphere? Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. You must follow von Daniken's work then a little.
Yes, he was very influential. He wasn't the most... See, a lot of people say he wasn't scientific. I didn't care about what scientific meant. It was just that he opened up possibilities.
Yeah.
With the Nazca lines in South America. I mean, who is making it looks like an airfield, but you can only see it from above.
Sure.
So why would our ancient ancestors make that airstrip, not unless, if they made it at all. But it's the technology is there, and we need to be looking at this.
That was my last show, Michael. Funny, I just did a show on Wednesday with Brian Forrester on the Nazca lines, funny enough.
Yes. I mean, I just had a friend come back from Peru. She brought me some crystals back. I'm meeting her for dinner tomorrow evening, and so I can't wait because crystals are very powerful and that kind of thing. And a lot of people think, oh my God, it's still New Age. This is not New Age stuff, friends. This is ancient knowledge that we're rediscovering. The book of Ecclesiastes tells us there's nothing new under the sun. It's just that this knowledge is new to us, and so. We say it's New Age, but this is ancient knowledge, the fact that thoughts are things, the fact that you create your own reality. Psalm 82 says, is it not said that ye are gods and children of the Most High? There's a God quality in us, if you want to use the word. You can use another word, divine mind, universal intelligence, the source, the force. Call it what you will, but call on it because it's inside of us. It's like going to the ocean and taking a drop of water, taking some water out of the ocean, and the water that you put in the glass from the ocean starts to think it's separate from the ocean. No, you're not separate from the ocean. I just put you in a glass. You're part of the ocean. The ocean's part of you. You just have a different container now. And we've been taught to think that we are separate, that we are miserable sinners, that we are we're anything but as powerful as we really are. Do we do heinous things to each other? Of course we do. Do we kill and murder each other? Of course we do. Out of ignorance.
Out of ignorance, exactly. Out of ignorance to what we are.
Out of ignorance.
For sure. So, Michael, where does Jesus fit into all this? That's the big question there, I guess.
Well, for me, I look at Jesus as an example of what is potential in me and you. I mean, if he says, and I believe he did say something similar to it, that the kingdom of heaven is within you, then that means that the potential to be who he was or is, and I'm not trying to be Jesus, I'm trying to be the best Michael I can be, but there's the potential in me to love. There's the potential to love wastefully, as the Reverend Bishop Spong used to say, or still says. I mean, he's not dead, but I love that, to love wastefully, to forgive, to be healed and to heal, to love. I mean, that's all potential in me. And so the teachings of Jesus, whether you think or one thinks he's a hybrid or not, I mean, there certainly is a great possibility of that, but basically he's the great example. He's not the exception. And there's a quote, and I think it's in the book of Matthew, when he's saying to the disciples, greater things than I do, you can do.
Sure.
But we don't. But the only thing that keeps us from doing that is that we don't believe it. Not really. And I'm not talking about walking on water. I'm not talking about changing water into wine. I'm talking about being the full, creative, vital, robust, health, loving people that we really can be. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about miracles per se, but that is a miracle, isn't it? To be able to be loving and healing towards one another. That's where the healing takes place. I think Jesus was part human and part extraterrestrial.
Demigod.
I would say hybrid.
Hybrid.
Yeah, a demigod for me has the connotation of a tyrant. I know that's not what you're implying, but I think he was a hybrid. Like I said, if the Holy Spirit, i.e., UFO technology, going into the embryo, because see, virgin, we can do it two ways. The word Alma in Hebrew means virgin. St. Jerome changed it to Jesus was born of a virgin, a woman whose hymen wasn't broken. No, that's not what it meant at all. In Hebrew, Alma means virgin, means young girl. People had kids earlier then. Miriam could have been about 14, 15, 16 years old at the time of Jesus' birth. However, if she was a virgin meaning young girl, but let's say she had not known a man, if I can use that parlance, if she had not known a man, And the angel Gabriel, whenever he's visiting these women, whether it's Elizabeth, the mother of John the Baptist, again, Manoah, Samson's, whether it's Sarah, when the angel, I don't know if it's Gabriel, I don't know who comes to her, but an angel, a messenger comes, and she's beyond the age of women when she's past menopause, and she gets pregnant. Certainly, there's some type of technology, some type of artificial insemination to make a woman 99 years old, talking about Sarah, have a child. So if you can do that, perhaps you can have a woman who's never made love to a man before have a child. And here we have Jesus. And so his father is not from this world, and his mother is, and that means he's not fully human.
Sure. The evidence is there.
It's there to look at. I mean, it could be wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, I've studied both sides of the question, that Jesus was just a human being like everybody else, because, he's called the Son of Man, and, there's some writers who don't mention Luke and John. They don't mention any angels or anything like that coming into the story of Jesus. Matthew does that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Mark doesn't even have a resurrection at the end of his gospel. So we don't know, but there's something there to look at.
Sure. Tell me about the Quran. I tell you, it's something I have come across as the only incident that I know of, but it's not typically UFO, but they have knowledge of the star system Sirius, and somebody's pointed this out to me before, that they know the orbital period of Sirius and its parent star, Sirius A and B, is 50 years. They have it wrote in a verse in the Quran, just as I mentioned to you the doggone the last time we spoke.
Yes. Well, again, first of all, the characters in the First and Second Testament, obviously, and in the First Testament, Old and New Testaments, are in the Quran. We just have Mary is Miriam, and Jesus, of course, is in the Quran. So there you have that. The other thing I wanted to say, just to go back, we don't have a Hebrew religion until the Exodus story. So if what I'm saying is true, then the Jewish religion was started by extraterrestrials. So that's what I'm saying. Now, in the Quran, we have a messenger coming to, again, and please buy the book, pick up your Quran, but buy my book, and you can compare them. The angel Gabriel, where do we see Gabriel? Well, he's all in the New Testament. He comes to Muhammad while Muhammad is in a cave, and Muhammad was illiterate. And he tells him, Iqra. Iqra means to recite, commanded the angel Gabriel. Muhammad refused. I'm reading from my book, page 77. But Gabriel was persistent. Again, Muhammad was told to recite. Gabriel commanded, recite in the name of your Lord who created from an embryo, created the human. Okay, listen to that. From the embryo, created the human. Recite, your Lord is all-giving, who taught by the pen, taught the human what he did not know before. And so we have Gabriel, the messenger, talking about how Allah created the human race. We also have when we talk about Allah, he is described as Lord of the worlds. Rabbul Alamein. Mm-hmm. Rabbul Alamein, translated, means Lord of the worlds. So here we have in the Quran, Muhammad saying that there is no God but Allah is Lord of the worlds, plural. That's a strong statement because it presupposes more than one world. And some of the extraterrestrials in the book are called jinns. Mm-hmm. The literal meaning of the word jinn is to conceal one's presence or to hide from observation. There's an entire chapter of the Quran about these beings. But they definitely have an otherworldly origin. They're also able to travel through space. It says here in the Quran of chapter 46, verse 29, and we jinns, know that we cannot escape Allah on earth, nor can we escape him through flight. So they know about flight.
Wow.
So again, the three monotheistic religions, and I'm not a Muslim, and I don't mean to offend any Muslim, but the research I did for that chapter was from a book called UFOs in the Quran by Abdul Aziz Khan. So I'm not the only person talking about this. Here we have a Muslim brother talking about this. So it appears that the three monotheistic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, have stories of beings flying in the sky.
You know, and that's the thing, Michael, you would expect to find it in all religions. If you're going to find it in one, you would expect to find it in them all, wouldn't you?
Yes, I would. I mean, again, many of our ancestors, even today, the First Nations people, we call them Native Americans, they have cosmologies, they have stories about the star people.
Yeah.
The star people. I have a lot of Cherokee in my blood, and there's stories in the Cherokee cosmology about beings coming from the stars.
Yeah.
Coming from the Pleiades.
Yeah.
Coming from these various systems.
I had Nancy Redstar on the show before from Ancient Aliens.
Yes. She told me.
She
has books out on this stuff.
Yeah, she's got a few, and I hadn't been aware of this Native American tradition of UFOs or star ancestors, as Nancy would call them, and I find it all fascinating, Michael. It's so fascinating, and it's a story that hasn't been told to, I guess, among Cherokees or among the Native Americans. It's been told, but I guess the time for these guys is to open up now and tell the world, because I think they feel the time is right, Michael.
Yes. Probably, there were times when this was secret knowledge, but now, as you say, the time is that all things that were secret will be made known. And the Hopi talk about the fifth world and how the world will be destroyed. The first world was destroyed by flood and that type of thing. I don't know what was the first world. There have been 4 worlds where we're going into the 4th world, something like that. It slips my mind. But if you want to read up on your own, your listeners read the Hopis have prophecies about beings from the stars and the times we're living in now. So it's out there if you're willing to look for it and to study. Don't take my word. Read for yourself, study, meditate on these things, and see what resonates with you. And if they don't resonate with you, things don't resonate with you, that's fine. That's fine. That's what life is about. But, at least the knowledge will come, and you'll appreciate it more. I'm talking about our audience, not just you in particular, James. Yeah. But you know why it'll resonate? Because you learned it on your own. You didn't take anybody's word for it. You went out there and studied and prayed and meditated, and you came to your own conclusions.
Tell me about the medieval paintings with all this, what looks like UFOs in the background. It
really does.
This is one of the biggest things for me in the research for UFOs in Christian faiths or other faiths. There's these medieval paintings that look like UFOs, and one or two of them even look like they're zapping a beam, Michael.
Yes, there's a I wanted to get it for my book, but I couldn't get the copy right for it. But there's one painting in particular that intrigues me. There's a wonderful book called The Alien Chronicles by a guy named Matthew Hurley, and the subtitle is Compelling Evidence for UFOs and Extraterrestrial Encounters in Art and Text Since Ancient Times. And on the front of his book, there's a painting by a Flemish painter named Urt de Gelder. And Urt de Gelder, I think it was in the 1700s, I think. But anyway, it's called The Baptism of Christ. And there is, some people say it's a picture of the sky opening, but there is a picture of John the Baptist and being baptized by Jesus, and there is a UFO, what looks to be a UFO, hovering over them with a beam of light shining down on them. I think that's the picture you're referring to.
Yeah, that's the one.
There's another picture. There's several pictures, but there's a picture of a mother, of the Madonna and child, Jesus and his mother Miriam, and in the back, over I believe her left shoulder, is an object that looks to be like a UFO. And this book is so wonderful because it goes through Chinese art, art here in the East and the West, and all of these pictures that have UFOs. And you have to say, how did this artist, particular artist, I think the one I was talking about was in the 15th century, but how are these artists, why are they painting these craft?
Yeah, there's another one. There's another one that really gets me. It's I think it's the Virgin Mary, and behind her shoulder, in the distance, in the background, there's what looks like a black UFO.
Yes, and there's someone pointing on it, I think.
Yeah, but the guy has his hands up to his eyes as if looking into the air to look at it to get a better view.
Yes, as if he's shielding his eyes from the sun. I'm looking at it right now. It's called the Virgin Mary and Saint Giovanni, School of Lippi, 1406 to 1469.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, in the 14th century, these folks are painting beings in the sky, craft in the sky.
Yeah. I mean, and I've heard other interpretations for them as well. But I mean,
sure.
For me, I'm sorry. I'm looking at the picture. I can see it with my own eyes. I'm looking at it, what it is. You can tell me it's something else all you want, but there's a lot of these. There is a lot of these.
Yeah, you have to ask. You have to say, okay, whatever you say it is a craft, and it was painted in the 14th century. Okay, so right there, you have to say that there's a question, isn't it? It's the 14th century painting with something in the sky. Tell me that's not the sun, it's not the moon, and so it gets to be. And you said something. I see with my own eyes. What's the old joke? Are you going to believe me, or are you going to believe your own eyes? Well, you're going to believe your eyes. Yeah. You're going to believe your eyes.
Here's the thing. The most beautiful thing is we didn't have cameras back then to take snapshots of these, but we had people painting pictures, and it's just one of these quirks of fate that stuff like this survives. And I mean, but there's several examples. That's the key thing, Michael.
Yes.
I'm going to get a copy of that book because I have it on record now. You've called out the name of it. I'll get it on the archive show, but I'm going to...
Yeah, you have to get... Yeah, it's a wonderful book.
It's something of...
By Matthew Hurley, Herley. It's called The Alien Chronicles.
Yeah. And
it's a keeper.
Wasn't there another representation of an aerial battle as well in the medieval times? They talked... there was a woodcut of an aerial battle as well. I can't remember it. It wasn't a painting, but they said there was an aerial battle between UFOs and all. They didn't know how to draw it, so they did a woodcut.
Well, remember now the Mahabharata and the Upanishads. Well, Mahabharata. I mean, they're talking about aerial combat way before medieval times. So yes, I mean, if what they're saying is true, and I see no reason to believe that it isn't true, then this has been going on. Aerial warfare has been going on. Many thousands of years.
Like you say, they could have had warring factions just like we do today on our, and there could be good ones, there could be bad ones,
Yes, and so this is, like you say, warring factions, meaning that that they're different species and different races with different agendas, just like we have as human beings. Sure. And so we must keep that in mind because, again, I mentioned it in the book. I don't want us to start getting into intergalactic racism. What does that mean? It simply means this. In our culture, and again, I'm not in Europe, but I know colleagues in Europe. I hear more visits by people who look more human, by ETs who look more human. They call them the Swedes or the Nordic. But what we've done here, which is what human beings do, is that we say, well, they're the benevolent ones because they look more like us. Now, I'm not blonde blue-eyed, so they don't look like us. They may look like a particular segment of the population, but the grays, see, they're dark, and they're small, and they're sinister. Mm-hmm. We used to say this about Japanese folk during World War II. But the blonde blue-eyed ones, well, they're nice, and they want peace. And those things may be true, but let them be true because they're true, not because they're true, because they make us more comfortable.
Yeah.
Because that kind of thing.
That makes
because they look like us.
That makes a lot of sense. I could have, Mike, if we're going to come up to the end of the show, I got to talk to you about the Ark of the Covenant before we go.
That's fine. We talked about it on Ancient Aliens season 6.
Oh, what? Yeah. When's that?
Yeah.
Like, when's season 6 coming out? Ancient Aliens.
You know what? I don't know because and they don't know because I taped some episodes in June.
Right. They shoot a lot.
And those haven't been shown. Well, they're supposed to be airing those now on the History Channel 2, which I don't get. So if they're just doing so that would be season 5, and I taped those in June. I just taped a few weeks ago for season 6, so season 6 will definitely probably not air until at least maybe January, February.
All right, we've got a while to go yet.
Yeah. But we talked about the Ark of the Covenant. The Ark of the Covenant story begins in Exodus 25, the 25th chapter of Exodus, and Moses and 70 elders are called up by Yahweh to come to the mountain, and we see that Moses and the elders see God. Now, we're told in Exodus 33, it's a little confusing because we're told that no man has seen God and lived, but then a few verses down, we see that there's a verse that says, and God talked to Moses, the Lord talked to Moses face to face as a man talks to a friend. So, of course, the question is, okay, guys, whoever you wrote this, which is it? But that's not the crux of the story. The crux of the story is that the Ark of the Covenant was built by the Hebrew people. Yahweh told them what he wanted, how he wanted it. He wanted it built from pure gold and wood. It's called shittim wood. And he asked for other things. He asked for linen, oil, incense, lighting for lamps. Lamps, we're told. Yes, lamps. Fine linen of purple and crimson and blue and he wanted all these gifts. You have to wonder where the Hebrew slaves got these gifts. They probably stole them from the Egyptians when they were fleeing, because this is, precious metals, copper, these types of things. So they robbed the Egyptians. So there goes one of the 10 commandments, thou shalt not steal, which is probably mean you shouldn't steal unless your enemies who kept you slaves. It's from your enemies who kept you slaves. And so it's a communication device. Of course, shows like movies like Raiders of the Lost Ark and what have you talk about getting it, and there's a legend that Hitler wanted to get his hands on it. I don't know who has it now. They say the Ethiopians had it.
Yeah.
They have it hidden. But it's basically a communication device where Yahweh says, you will get your orders from me. And they're 2 cherubim. They are made of gold. They're angels, and their wings touch. There's something called the mercy seat that sits above the ark, and this is the communication device. Now, the priest had to wear they had to wear clothing. They had to wash. They could only enter at certain times, and the priests were from the Israelites. They were chosen by Yahweh and Moses. Aaron, Moses' brother, was a priest, and his son, and his son, and his son. So remember, this goes on for generations. It was a very privileged position, but it was also a very dangerous position because people had touched the ark and were electrocuted. A guy named Uzzah was walking alongside the ark. King David was walking in front, and one of the oxen had hit a bump or something, and the ark was wobbly, and Uzzah put his hand to steady the ark, and he died. So there's some electricity, there was no fire or explosion. There were people who got boils and hemorrhoids from it. Yes, hemorrhoids. People think I'm making this up, but you have to read the Bible closely. But in the in Samuel, 1 Samuel, chapter 6, we have the Philistines. They take the ark. They win it. They win the ark in a battle at Mount Shiloh. They win the ark, and they take it from the Israelites, and they're carrying it, and they all get struck down with hemorrhoids. In chapter 5 of 1 Samuel, it says, the hand of the Lord lay heavy upon the Ashdodites, and he wrought havoc among them, and he gave them hemorrhoids. And this, I'm reading from the Hebrew translation. First Samuel verse 5. It says, he struck the city, young and old, so that hemorrhoids broke out among them. In the King James Version, which is the worst translation you can read because it has Jesus speaking Shakespearean English, they call them boils.
Right.
If you go into, it says that the men there, they were stricken with hemorrhoids, and the outcry of the city went up to heaven. Again, I use that verse as saying that what type of benevolent God would give young and old hemorrhoids?
This sounds like a dangerous technological device.
It is very dangerous. People touched it and died. There was radiation. And remember, the priests, like we do today when you're working around radiation, you can only enter at certain times. You can only stay in so long. They're wearing a mitre on their head. They're wearing a breastplate. They're wearing clothing to protect their genital area and their heart and lungs.
Wow.
They can only enter at certain times. They have to bathe at certain times. You can read Exodus 25 to get a good grasp of the whole story.
I looked at
Exodus chapter 25.
Sure,
the Ark of the Covenant.
Yeah, I looked at the Ethiopian claim and the credit. Well, I've read Graham Hancock's book, The Sign and the Seal, and I've had Graham on the show before. What an awesome researcher, by the way. But
yes.
I think there's quite a good claim, a good lot of credence for the Ethiopians actually having it, like, you know.
I think it is, because remember, these Ethiopians were Jewish as well. Remember, the Ark of the Covenant is sacred because it holds the Ten Commandments. Now, of course, there's the story about Joshua walking around the city with the Ark 7 times, and then there's a loud noise, a horn is blown, and the walls of Jericho come tumbling down. We could talk about that too.
Please do. I actually wrote about that in my sequel of my book, my own book, Michael, and so please do tell me about that.
Well, I feel that, I don't know if the Ark made the walls come down, but remember, they're still in the woods, they're still in the wilderness, in the desert actually, and so remember, they still have that spaceship flying over them, leading them. So my contention is that possibly that the craft had helped them to make the walls crumble. It was definitely, the Ark was mainly a communication device, and it was very dangerous. I mean, when the priests carried the Ark, they walked at least a mile away from the rest of the tribe, those who were carrying, the priests who were in charge of the Ark.
Sure.
They walked because people were getting radiation. And of course, these people were ignorant. They didn't know. They thought that the Lord was angry. Who was it? A couple other of Moses' nephews were killed. I think it was in the book of Numbers, where they had some incense in there and it caught fire and they were killed. And so the people thought that they were killed because they brought unholy incense into the temple. But dangerous work. But of course, very prestigious work. A lot of Levites were priests even to the time of Jesus, and this is why the priests held so much power and authority. They had a lineage since the time of Moses. And here you have Jesus coming and saying that I'm greater than Moses, or people saying that he said that. Moses represented the law. Jesus was saying, I'm trying to tell you how to fulfill that law. And the way to fulfill the law is with love and forgiveness. But Moses, Yahweh was very strict in your rules. Thou shalt not do this, thou shalt not do that. But remember, that only applied to other Jews. You didn't steal your Jewish brother's wife. You didn't commit adultery with her. But you could go into the Canaanites' land, the land of Canaan, and you could kill men, women, and children.
Yeah.
Because Yahweh says, this land is yours. Well, it's like Columbus saying, this land is mine, when there are people already living there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have this astronaut saying, this is the land that I will give you. But that's lovely. But hey, man, there are people living there.
Yeah.
There are people living here. What are you doing?
Fascinating. Such a knowledgeable guy, Michael. You really are. You're such a knowledgeable guy.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, you are, and it's the detail of the knowledge. This is a lot of research for you, Michael, even just to orate this and contextualize it in for people like me, I suppose, who are, not theology based. I'm like Mr. Scientist, Mr. Engineer, and I look at this stuff and I go, well, I haven't looked at this before. I think this is important. Why have I not heard about this? And it's like, it's only for guys like yourself, Michael, that just kind of put this all together for us and like an aim.
Well, but you know what? And you and I need each other. Science needs religion, and religion needs science, because in a technological age like this, where we do have ET visitors, we need the technology, but we also need the spirituality to go with it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because we live in a world where we're slaves to technology. I mean, we got iPhones and iPads and computers, and we Skype, and we do all these things. And the very things that were supposed to make our lives easier and simpler has now made us more busy.
Sure. Funny enough, Michael, you mentioned crystals earlier too, and
yes.
I'll probably blow you away with this, but there's another researcher called Maurice Cotterell, and Maurice has given me some very privileged knowledge, and because he knew where I was going in my research, and the ancient monuments that I researched, there's a lot of crystal in them, quartz crystal, white quartz crystal.
Yes, they're conductors of energy.
Yeah, but what the thing is, there was a major fertility problem around the time that these monuments were built, around 3113 BC, that the Mayan put it to, but in around 3200 to 3000 BC, there was a major fertility problem on this planet because of sunspot cycles. And hey presto, the sunbeams coming down these chambers, right, lighting up all the quartz. But when electromagnetic light, now this is the science meets religion. This is where I'm going with this, Michael. But
yes.
These guys were researching spirituality. These were conscious beings. They were exploring their consciousness and their spirituality. But there was also a fertility problem, and I think these guys knew. I think somebody told them. Personally, I don't think they just figured this all out without a scientific doctrine there. But the point is that when the electromagnetic light hits quartz, it bends it into a more magnetic shift, and in doing that more magnetic shift, Michael, it helps fertility. Now, did they know the exact scientific process? I don't think so, but I think somebody told them. Now, who's that somebody? That's the big question, Michael.
Well, see, that's always the question. Where's the knowledge coming from? It's not so much that they have it, but where are they getting it?
Yeah.
And that, again, that opens up the thesis for maybe ancient aliens.
Yeah.
Now, I just before we go, because I know you just mentioned you had to go, I wanted just to tell people where they could get the book.
Yeah, we've got a few minutes yet, Michael. I want to.
Okay, great.
Yeah, but
great.
I'm gonna. Well, I guess just give us the website. I want to ask you with the Nephilim before we go. You're not going anywhere until you tell me with the Nephilim.
Oh, good. Yeah, well, I'm not in any great hurry, believe me. Okay, First of all, you can get the book at AmazonUK.com. You can get it at Barnes and Nobles, Nook or Kindle. It's called Ancient Alien Scriptures, Extraterrestrials in the Holy Bible by Michael J. Carter. You can go to my website, which is www.michaeljscarter.com. I was having some problems with the site yesterday, but hopefully by tomorrow it will be fixed, and you can click on the book hopefully sometime this week, and you can get the book. The book is $9.89. The Kindle version is $4.99.
Wow,
the Nephilim, the ones who came down to earth. Sitchin talks about this a lot. I know Mark had mentioned to you, Mark Eddy, that I had met Sitchin and had coffee with him
on
the Upper West Side. He lived a few blocks from me. The Nephilim were in Genesis. We talk about the Nephilim as those who came down and intermarried and breeded with earth women and created the giants of renown. Some people speculate that Goliath may have been one of those giants. The Book of Enoch, which is a book that was not, it's a separate book. I highly commend it to you because it goes more into the story of the Nephilim. Enoch was a scribe for the Nephilim. But they talk about that in 2 Samuel chapter 21. And there was again war at Gath, where there was a man of great stature who had 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes on each foot, 24 in number. And he also was descended from the giants. And when he taunted Israel, Jonathan, the son of Shimei, David's brother, slew him. These four were descended from the giants in Gath. Now, these giants
Mm-hmm.
were the offspring of the Nephilim. Remember, they were part human and part extraterrestrial because they had made love or had sex the old-fashioned way with earth women. And so, and there is speculation. It's easy to speculate, and it's probably intelligent that the story of David and Goliath was probably one of the giants.
Wow, what a fascinating. This thing. How has this been overlooked for so long, Michael? This story, this anecdotal evidence, like.
Well, I think, like I said, human consciousness is slow, but it does evolve. And I think, it was probably just not only was it too far-fetched for people to believe, but, how am I going to get tenured position if I bring this up? I'm an academic, let's say, and I'm at a certain academic institution, and I start saying, hey, I've been reading Graham Hancock. I've been reading Zechariah Sitchin. I've been reading, John Mack. I've been reading about archaeology, alternative archaeology, and I've come up with another theory. And wow, we got to look at this stuff, and people are going to resist that. People's careers are on the line here. I'm reading Forbidden Archaeology, by Cremo and Thompson, and I want you to read this stuff. And you're not going to get a job. You're not going to keep a job.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Saying that history is so different from what I'm sure that's involved. Also, the fear factor of being ridiculed. John Mack had a hard time at Harvard. Remember, they wanted to get rid of him there when he started talking about hypnotism, and these young people and old people are talking about this is very real. They've been abducted.
Sure.
So there's a lot of reasons why it's overlooked. Maybe it's overlooked intentionally, I'm sure. Sometimes it's not so intentionally.
Michael, I was in university, and my colleague. Now, I this wasn't just somebody I was with for a week or so. I was with him for a long period of time, and we had found an asteroid together and doing astronomy and stuff like that. The asteroid had been discovered already, but it hadn't been seen. It was only ever seen once in its lifetime. We were the second people to find it again, and it was a test we had to go through for our research and stuff. But so we had found an asteroid together, so there's a bit of camaraderie between us. But he asked me what I did as a hobby, and I jokingly said to him, but it was serious too. I said I researched Atlantis, and he never spoke to me again.
Oh yeah, it's done. Yeah, because people think you're crazy. Yeah. But look, what a difference 15, 20 years makes. I remember when I could talk about this, but I couldn't talk about my contact experiences because my professional life was at stake.
Yeah, yeah.
And I guess in some ways maybe one's private life is at stake. If you're going to tell you're dating or you're going out, not unless you got a very open-minded partner, and you're going to say, hey, I write about ETs in the Bible, or hey, I've seen people from other planets. Really?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Really?
I know.
Yeah, do I want to be in relationship with you? It's a very, there's data that shows that a lot of folk, at least it was, who one of the marriages, it's hard to sustain a marriage if you're having these experiences. If your partner either doesn't believe you or you're having trauma, your relationships can be destroyed.
For sure. I was going to say, Michael, your website's up and running there. I was looking at it earlier, the michaeljscarter.com, and you can click the book. You can click on the web link for the book there, because I did that already today.
Yes, good, because a friend of mine went on it today. He said it's not up yet, and I said, how can it not be up yet? And I went on and I saw it. So if you go, it should be up in the next couple of days. James just said he went there. But if you don't go there, then just go to Amazon.com UK or Barnes & Nobles, and they will have Kindle or paperback.
Sure, and I'm going to have you linked up on the CapricornRadio.com archive biography page as well, with a clickable link as well, Michael. But
right, and I'm going to read your book and review it, and
thank you, Michael. Yes.
I'll send that to you probably in a couple of weeks.
I never mention it on the show very much. Sometimes people know that I'm.
Well, you got to. I mean, listen. You're doing a service. You're giving people things to think about so they don't think they're crazy. You're giving people hope. You're healing them in a lot of ways that I'm not crazy, and I've come to these conclusions too. And so if you hide your light under a bushel, James, nobody will see it.
I know. I'm my own worst publicist. I'm telling you, I'm not a great publicist for myself. I love doing research. You see, that's my problem is I just love doing the research too much, and I'm a bit selfish. I'm like a kid in a candy store with research and information. I just like we said, Michael, we're both water signs. We're both Cancerians.
Yes, which is why we're into this in a lot of ways anyway. But yeah, I'm telling you that you need to read James's book.
Thank you.
And so I'm going to be reading it, and you want to read it as well. And we get your information out to you, but we also need to pay our bills and our rent, and we have families. So if you can help out in that way, we'd be more than happy.
Thank you, Mike.
It's a free energy exchange.
Thank you, Michael. Before we go, Michael, what's new for you? What are you doing today?
Well, what I'm doing now, I'm the minister at a Unitarian Universalist church here where I live in Western North Carolina. I just signed a 2-year contract. I don't know when another book is going to be. I'm trying to get on a UFO lecture circuit for 2014. I have a wonderful publicist, Mark Eddy. I have a wonderful publisher. Brian Kennard, he's my publisher, and so we'll just see where the spirit leads. I have a wonderful 7-year-old daughter that I'm trying to spend more time with, and so basically right now, just running that church and getting it to grow is what I'm doing now, and trying to enjoy life while I have it.
Good.
And we'll see if there's another book or something in the works, maybe in a year or two.
I really hope you do another book, Michael. I really do. I really, really do. It's a wonderful book, and it's a wonderful collection of information from historical concept to biblical concepts from all different faiths, and it's well compiled.
Thank you.
It's an enjoyable read, and it's like, and this is even for me from a non-theological background. I am a spiritual person, and I believe
no question. Yeah, I can feel that from you.
Yeah, my God, I don't know. I don't define them too well, but I do go for chat.
Well, you can't. I don't either.
I don't even think you can sometimes. Yeah, I do go up to the top of Ireland sometimes to my mountain, and I have like a beautiful sunset over the top of Ireland, and that's when I have my chat with the man above, and I do go quite regularly. Like actually a lot more often at the moment for some reason.
I do it too, a lot more often now. But I don't. Yeah, any God we can define is not God, because the finite can never comprehend the infinite, ever.
For sure. Michael, we'll wrap it up with that. Again, the website is michaeljscarter.com. Give us out the name of your book one more time before we go.
It's called Alien Scriptures, Extraterrestrials in the Holy Bible by Reverend Michael J.S. Carter, MDiv. Again, Amazon and Barnes & Nobles is carrying it as well.
Thank you again, Michael. It's been a pleasure having you on the show.
Okay, James. God bless. Bye-bye.
Bye now.